Hi, this is an overview of the next step of the Reliable Sources project. And in this step, what you have to do is decide, how are we going to decide what criteria to use to evaluate stuff we find? Like, do we just read everything and take it all as, what it is? Or do we look a little deeper? So let's take a look at the assignment and for this part. So last week, the first part of the assignment was to give me a topic or give me 3 topics. And I will be getting back to people who submitted that. But on this part, you're going to actually come up with a list of criteria that you can use for when you start looking at articles and resources next week. So this would be a very practical assignment for you. So let me jump over to the assignment. In Moodle, when you click on the Reliable Sources Part 2 and you click on the assignment information, this is where it will take you. And what I did up at the top is I made a kind of a jump list to all of the 5 parts of the assignment. Keep in mind, these other 3 are just template sites right now. So there's not any information there that you'll find useful. But later on, if you're going back and forth, I wanted to make it easy to go back and forth between the parts of the project. And so in this particular task, you're going to create a list of evaluation criteria to help you determine if a source is reliable or not. So there's really 2 parts to that. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but there's basically 2 parts. So in the first part, you have to find some websites that talk about this. I'll give you a hint, like almost every college library, including ours, has a link to a page that talks about evaluating sources. That's kind of what librarians do. They're really good about that. But there's some other places too. So you're going to just do a Google search or wherever you like to search, DuckDuckGo or whatever, and do a search for, how do I evaluate a web page? That's a good place to start. Evaluation criteria for articles. That might be another one. So come up with a search term or 2 that you can use. Make sure you set your search. Actually, I could show you this now. Make sure you set your search to look for stuff in the last, I don't know, last year or so. So let's see. I'll put evaluation, criteria for articles and do a search. Now, a whole bunch of stuff comes up, and by default, most of it's probably pretty good. But if you want to set your search to be in the last year or 2, click on Tools. Sometimes you might have to click on More to see the tools, but click on Tools anytime within the past year. You can set a custom range. For example, when you're looking for the actual articles, you can find something that's 2 or 3 years old, or within the last 2 or 3 years. You can set a custom range for that. And so click on Past Year. And that will narrow down the list of sites that you see. And yeah, just start looking through some of these, research guides, library at brocu.canada, CA. That's probably a good thing to look at. Don't just grab the first 3, but, look through. So this one's at valdosta.edu. Pretty good chance if it's at an edu, it's good. But here's one, UMB libraryguides.com. That's probably not a university, but let's open it and take a look. Oh, it is the University of Massachusetts in Boston. They just don't happen to have a .edu. So if you take a second and you look through a few of these, let me open up, I don't know, I'm just going to grab a couple random ones. This one is NL. I'm not sure where NL is, but we'll find out. Hopefully it's in English. And I'll just grab that Valdosta one also. So you're going to find 3 different sites, and you're going to look at what evaluation criteria they pull up. So this particular site, they're looking at the authority, like who the author is, currency, if it's a scholarly work, is it objective, is it relevant, primary versus secondary sources. So they give you a list of criteria there. Let's see, which one were these guys? These were the University at Groningen. Oh, I wonder if NL is Netherlands. I bet it is, but it happens to be in English, so that helps us. Information literacy. So let's see, content and level. Does the information relate? Is it related? How complete is it? Is it current? Is it reliable? So they have their own list, right? Authority of the source and origin of the document. How accurate, objective, and verifiable is the content? Is it fabricated news? Here's some fact-checking websites. Okay, so they have a list. Let's look at our third one. Valdosta. Evaluating sources, ask a librarian. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Criteria for evaluating journal articles. Is the article scholarly or peer-reviewed? Is it timely? Is it relevant? Primary or secondary? So are you noticing a theme here? Like a lot of these sites will have some of the same things, but then some things will be different. So let's say you look at 3 or 4 different sites, you're going to end up with a list of maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 different criteria. Just make a list of what they all say. And then decide for yourself, what are the 5 things that you would like to pick? Like 5 things that you would look at. One of them has to be the author. That's the only one though that I'm mandating. So author has to be in there. But after you find these different sites, what you're going to do is come back here. Well, actually, let me go, because I have an example here. So let's go to the example. What you're going to end up writing up is a Google Doc so this isn't like a straight example of how you should do it, because I've got some commentary in here and I've got some links and things, but it'll give you an idea. So if it's in italics, that's my commentary. And so the 3 sites you find, you're going to make a citation for. You don't need to write up a bunch of stuff about them. You should actually say what the site is. So search for sources, create a proper citation, use a search phrase to begin and see what comes up. So say what the site is and give a citation. And then your list of 5 things, let's say you pick 5, you can pick 5 to 8, but the more you have, the harder it is to remember. So if you stick with about 5, you're good. So I give you 2 examples here. One is an example of a B paper, and it's kind of short. And one's an example of an A paper. And I figure, why give you examples of like C, D's, and F's? Nobody's going to want to do those. So here's your examples. And so let me go back up to the B paper just because it's shorter and easier to show. So you've got your list of criteria, right? You're going to discuss, give me a paragraph or 2, why you picked those ones. Why, author, obviously, but why did you think, I don't know, currency or reliability or bias, or there's a whole bunch of different things you could pick. Why did you pick them? Why do you think those will be useful to help you evaluate other websites? And then the second part is you're going to define each criteria. So don't just copy what's on one of the pages. Sometimes people do that and I just zero out their paper. It's really kind of sad on both parts. So don't just like copy their thing here, okay? In your own words, write up, how do you define this criteria, like author? Knowing the author is important because we, the readers, need to see where it came from, yada, 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 okay? So, the author is the person that wrote the document. That's really the whole paper. That's this whole assignment. And so here's your process. Your process right here is create the document, create a Google Doc. This will be a different one. Keep them all in one place because you're going to end up kind of putting it all together at the end. But create a document, a Google document. Make sure you have a heading on top. I kind of give you an example of that. You should always, always, always place a header up at the top, okay? And then you're going to look for your examples, just like I did. You're going to go to Google or wherever you search, look for the examples, come up with 3 or 4 different ones or 5, whatever. You can look at as many as you want, but pick 3 and create a citation for them. Okay, search for the sources, or look at the example, the one I just showed you. Search for the sources, develop your own list out of all the things that they give you ideas to look for or look at. What are the 5 things you're going to pick? And then write up your results. So I give you some additional resources. Here's the one from the VVC library. You can use that as one of your sources if you want. And here's a librarian's help. I'm going to keep that on this project because that's a really useful thing. The way you're going to submit this is similar to what you did before, is you're going to name it CIS 101, your name, your actual name, reliable sources 2. Download it as a PDF, and then upload it to the assignment in Moodle for this week. And this rubric always lets you know how you're going to be graded. So if you looked at this, you could see what's worth the most points. You know, getting your citations, that's like 4 points, but the why part, why you picked it, that's worth the most points. However, the description's worth quite a bit too. You know, so the description of each of the criterion. So, and then the other stuff, I just call those silly points. Like, don't lose the silly points. Make sure you have a heading. Make sure you do all these things. Have good paragraph formatting. Do a spell check. All of that. So, in a nutshell, for this assignment, you're going to go do a search for sources that talk about evaluating other sources. You're going to compile a list of all the suggestions they have. You know, kind of put them all together. If they all say author, don't write it down 3 times. Just write it down once. And, you know, but see how many things you come up with. Then you're going to pick 5 of them. You can pick a few more if you want, if you find them useful. And then you're going to write it up. So this is step 2 of this 5-part assignment. Our end goal is we're going to actually look for some sources on one of those tech topics that you're super interested in. And it's always very interesting. People like this assignment because they get to learn more about something they're interested in.